Okay, we are live. Let me get back in the cup. But we are live. Okay, so I don't have any more storage on my phone. I need to get a camera. So I'm going to be doing lives until I can figure out how to have a better setup. But this is just a way for me to get my content up. Okay, so this is going to be a climate change policy research proposal that I have written for economists, scientists, and politicians. So I'm just going to focus on what's in front of me. I'm just going to be reading over the proposal and kind of talking about why it's important. Okay. The Biden administration has promised a significant reduction in carbon emissions within the next 6 years. By 2030, the United States has promised to reduce our footprint by 50%, our carbon emissions footprint. Many other actors have signed into this agreement as well. It's called the Paris Agreement. I'm sure you've heard of it. The Paris Agreement was signed in 2015 by many states and actors via the United Nations in Paris. Although staying true to this treaty has been deemed more difficult than first recognized. Every year we miss our goals by larger and larger margins. Every year we must tweak the agreement to address a more drastic and extreme climate crisis. However, the Paris Agreement has an initiative to reduce the global temperature by 2 degrees Celsius than the average temperature before industrialization. So before we became cars and planes and factories and all those things, we want to reduce our climate. And this is important because before I'm trying to think. We've reached these extreme high temperatures like in the early 2000s, and that's when we came up with our chemical waste system that we have today. But our chemical waste system is not sturdy or efficient enough to deal with all of the chemical waste that we have, which I'll go later into this, develop later into this paper. Therefore, only with radical climate reduction clauses and mandates can we reach the goal we have set by 2030. Focus and determination is crucial while also introducing new policies that can combat extreme crisis. This proposal is an introduction to a study of innovative and unique approaches to old policy and possibly new frameworks to implement them today. Because our economy and our quality of life both depend on our environment. Investigating the long-term effects of our toxic waste system and the biohazards of ingesting toxic chemicals through our food, air, water, and product supply is the first aim and objective of this study. The goal is to live in a waste-free environment now so we can focus our efforts on properly addressing our current toxic waste. Relative to chemical function, price, and performance, as stated in the research by Michael P. Wilson, human safety is severely undervalued. The research will delve into interviews of scientists who implement green chemistry. Green chemistry essentially is the renowned research of how to remove toxic chemicals from our planet. Green chemistry can also be the abstract solution to the data gap of chemical hazard traits. Chemicals that are readily used today do not have to undergo critical safety investigations, and therefore is creating a public safety health risk. Wilson describes this as a safety gap. These gaps are due to the marginal studies of green chemistry research. Wilson concludes that the European Union's REACH registration, evaluation, authorization, and restriction of chemicals regulation has opened up the opportunity for the United States to implement new policies and regulation. Wilson contends this will inherently create differences in policy, law, health, science, and technology. Studying the creation of non-toxic chemicals that is sustainable for transport and production and will neutralize the toxic waste in our environment. Chemical neutralization will essentially make the toxic chemicals safe enough for our environment to grow with or around. Reestablishing our biosystems and biodiversity. This is a huge step forward for our oceans and blue economy. Ideally, removing the trash from the ocean puts it back to a state where we can chemically degrade it. Therefore, make it non-hazardous to the soil, human beings, and to our wildlife. restoring forests and growing more plants for a more homeostatic planet. Restoring forests and growing more plants for a more homeostatic planet. Production, and that means just a balanced environment. Production and transportation of chemicals creates the most significant CO2 emissions. If chemicals can create or begin to create a solution that will safely reduce the offset emissions of chemicals, it will sustain humanity post-industrialization. Developing more earth-friendly zero plastic waste products also reduces the carbon footprint of the daily consumer. Implementation through a climate change zero carbon mandate research has shown people will naturally choose the more sustainable option if it is easily accessible. Through the reusable bag trial, many people have conferred a willingness to easily adapt to a new lifestyle that is radically beneficial for everyone. Zero waste grocery and drugstores can stop the process of creating more waste while we chemically degrade all the waste we currently have. Carbon-free products are safer to ingest because they are not made with certain chemicals and are purposefully made to be environmentally safe and friendly. I introduced this framework to a chemical engineering student at the University of Central Florida, and they were surprised by the lack of standards we have for the issue thus far. Eagerly, they contested how they would purchase carbon-free zero plastic and zero waste if it were offered in their area. They continued to say, as it pertains to business, that they would choose a cleaner supply chain of creating products and also opting for purchasing products that use free renewable energy, especially if it cuts their budget. Content contends to the necessity of the research proposal is because of the lack of attention given to the Paris Agreement, green chemistry, and environmental conscious economical political frameworks. Humans being unknowingly adversely affected is extremely dangerous to our quality of life. The second objective aims to compare is the green supply chain and the blue economy to our current process. The second objective aims to compare is the green supply chain and the blue economy to our current process of production and free markets. Both systems are valuable to saving our planet on land and our ocean. The blue economy begins to explore the overall rising conflict between growth and development versus sustainability and protection of non-renewable resources. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are the proposed solutions we have thus far to this economical environmental conflict. Incentivizing carbon-free systems that support economical gain saves us money and will help to cut carbon emissions by 50% within the next 6 years, which will propel our government forward and prepare us for centuries to come. It is the beginning aspect of zero carbon living and radically will create a difference in the global footprint. Developing our green and blue economy, research and practices are the only ways to sustain environment, health, and quality of life. Conducting provisions for free renewable energy could also introduce digital currency for products into our markets. An abstract solution because we already have the circulating digital currency, which is created by energetic electric means. A great source of payment for electrical energy, support for free renewable energy will propel global society forward. Investments into these economical changes will introduce businesses into a more sustainable, I'm trying to get this out quickly. Progressive practice will introduce businesses into a more sustainable and progressive practices by supporting our free markets. Substantially concluding our current means of fossil fuels as our main energy output and moving forward 100% renewable energy can democratize our international markets. Because cryptocurrency is created with energy, it is a viable option to research as means of regulation for renewable energy. This creates cost effectiveness in our domestic and international markets and can help us to get better electrical grids in extremely impoverished developing countries. In the interview I conducted, the patron also suggested this is a more compelling and interesting form of supplying energy to people. Research shows that over the course of 1 year, zero carbon electricity has saved us billions of dollars. Strategic investments from corporations to advance renewable energy in production and transportation of the green supply chain will eradicate our domestic and international carbon footprint. This will help us to leave the rest of our focus on regulating our current toxic waste. The green supply chain and blue economy methods both substantially help to clean the environment. This affects our quality of life immensely and the potential health hazards we face over the years. With chemical analysis and policy research with implementation, many issues in our environment can be resolved. With an option of digital currency as the regulation method, many people can invest in renewable energy through products and assets for their home or vehicles. This solution begins to solve the gap in the environmental economy and democratizes the environmental markets. Comparison of the global qualities of life as directly correlated to the environment of the present and future and conflict areas or areas who have faced extreme natural disaster. Researching the modern life and sustainability of major populated areas that are underdeveloped can give insight on how to combat climate change on a global scale. Disregarding the economic valuation of a household, the abstract solution is to include cost effectiveness as a huge incentive in the policy regulation of zero carbon mandates. International trade and businesses has a huge prosperity valuation with the introduction of zero waste supply chain systems. Eating locally in season and keeping resources in their own region to aid in replenishing many developing countries and areas. Keeping trade such as food and clean products within their own region and sister regions aids in rebuilding the stronger economies globally. This creates a natural environment that can thrive. Thus, after local incentives have been established, then we should reintroduce international trade and transport in a fossil fuel-free way. The best way is through sustainable clean energy or electricity. International public policy is extremely important to review and include in the business administration of global climate advocacy and wasteless living. The quality of life will finally make an effort to equalize amongst all nations. Superlative for the health of children and the elderly to be able to live comfortably and without ingesting toxic chemicals or facing extreme natural disasters. The research of international laws in regards to their environmental policies and economics is thus extremely important. Directly studying and conducting research abroad in Paris will be a more conducive background to establish our international mandates and policies. This research will be guided by Imani Davis. I am a master's student at Liberty University with a bachelor's in political science and attaining a master's in public policy with business administration. With access to professors and faculty at Liberty University, I will be able to receive advice and guidance from a wide range of well-qualified professors with a multitude of resources and experience in this sector. Also with the aid of faculty to be able to network with universities that hold my research, such as Columbia in the New York area, Harvard in the DC area. Once in Paris, my plan is to conduct as much international journalism as possible and find as much international research as I can in order to make sure we're on track globally with the Paris Agreements. To gain access to many resources as possible, Q1 through 3, for the next 6 months, I plan on doing research here locally in the United States, thus said, and for the second 6 months, I plan to study in Paris. This year will be about how to implement my research to establish new network connections in the United States. Seeking journals to prepare writings for policy and academic journal research will be about how to implement my research in establishing network connections. Oh, God. Oh, sorry. I just realized that says the same thing twice. Okay, so basically, overall, you get the gist of this research. So I hope you learned something from climate change and how essential it is to study blue economy, green supply chain, or blue and green economy, and green chemistry, and also zero waste living. So tomorrow we will be going over, either tomorrow or later tonight, which probably will be tomorrow. We will be reading another a peers paper, and we will be comparing and contrasting my suggested policies and their suggested policies, and we will be doing that for the next couple days, and hopefully it will give you a well-rounded answer to what we should do to address climate change.